Hey, welcome back to another Black City Coffee vlog. In this video, we're going to talk about third wave versus fourth wave and the lesser known fifth wave of coffee and kind of, I guess, my thoughts on it. So this question came from 999 or 999, asked about third versus fourth. What are your thoughts on fourth wave coffee? I didn't really have any thoughts, and so that that spurred me to go like, well, what do I think about that? And so I started to research it a little bit, and I gave you credit for, giving me an idea for making a video, but also just like churning my wheels a little bit, which I found really fun. So I found this really quickly. This is from District Roasters. Just Googled it real quick on what they define as fourth wave coffee. Obviously, this is like, hey, we're fourth wave, buy from us. And that's fine, that's cool. But they do really, I think, summarize what first wave was, which was your Folgers Coffee or Maxwell House and many other coffee people. Second wave was your Starbucks, your Pete's, your Dunkin' Donuts. Then we had Starbucks, which we could thank them for allowing the American people to even be okay with the idea of spending more than $1 or $2 on coffee. You got to thank Starbucks for that. Like, to me, that's their biggest contribution to coffee industry, is getting the American people or the populace to be like, I want to pay more for coffee, because it just wasn't a belief of the American people yet. And then in third wave, we have your higher bean quality, your intelligentsia, your blue bottle, the hoity-toity, which I was definitely kind of a part of, but in a weird way. Purists. I definitely started out that way, and now I'm definitely humbled, and I think I'm definitely a part of what this fourth wave coffee is, or some little branch of fourth wave. So they define fourth wave as very high specialty bean quality, small districts, individual farmers. We're seeing that a lot in the farmers that I dealt with. Like, if you guys remember, I got some green from like Siempre Verde Farms. There's another one called Coffee Net availability. Where you want it to be. What does that mean? Where you want it to be? Oh, like we're bringing our coffee with us. So I think that's what it means. It's like we're traveling with our coffee. You guys see my coffee kit too. Like, I'm so crazy about it now. The experience. So 360 artisan coffee. I don't know what that means. So just like more an artisan vibe. This video here really explains it really well. Let me show you. If you research that, or I'll drop the link in the description, but it's the 5 waves of coffee explained. So he explains it, but like the highest quality of coffee, and then a fairness and a sustainability in the farming, and a lot more focus on bringing focus to the farmer. Farmers are even going on video, like he explains in this video here.
The fourth wave. What is the fourth wave of coffee? This is where the lines start to blur a little bit. Some would say that it...
Oh, sorry. So I like to watch videos, especially for these like reaction type videos. I'll put it fast, just so I don't get any problems from YouTube. And like, let's just listen really quickly, okay?
It's happening now. Others might not even acknowledge that it's real. But for the purposes of this video, we'll say that it has already waved. Many are referring the fourth wave as the science of coffee. So much more attention to water chemistry, even more precise measurements, next level equipment, but also a major emphasis on sustainable farming practices and studying the...
I think what he also didn't mention here is like this fermentation stuff that's going on with coffee, and kind of like stepping into the realm of how wine is perceived in the American populace. How like he'll talk about like pairing coffee with certain foods, so like coffee pairing. So that's kind of like a new idea that I think fourth wave is trying to introduce, or like high-end coffee, high-end restaurants, high-end like specialty coffee. So let's continue more.
Impacts of climate change on producers, and also on the whole supply network as a whole. So in my research and my coffee travels to various cafes around the world, I felt that as a reaction to the sometimes snobbish third wave culture, the fourth wave was a lot more about bringing coffee service to the next step. So
yeah, so if you didn't catch that, third wave is like snobby, the turn your nose up, the purists, which I definitely have recovered from that sort of outlook upon how I like view coffee and how I judge others and how they drink their coffee or take their coffee. I mean, people, I think, who have that perception of coffee, or even like they're typically purists about most things in their life, like not just coffee. They're highly functioning people, maybe a little rigid. which is me. I have like a high judgmental thing on my personality scale. And that's something that I try to let go and manage. But definitely like, we're coming away from that. And I think coffee is just becoming more about, definitely what this channel has become more about is like me just humbly documenting the wins and the losses and all the just stuff in between, which I think makes it more approachable, makes me judge myself less too, because people who are judgy or probably purists, and I'm just kind of like speaking from my own purist self and being a recovering purist, it's because they expect so much of themselves. I expect so much of myself in certain ways, where this sort of like unforgiving A+ student who's always like striving because of some fear-based reason, right? We bring that into our life and into our world like that. And so as somebody who's like recovering from being like that, and we're talking about like an industry that is recovering from being purist, you know, and going into the fourth wave, I think is great. Like that's what I'm trying to do, is just humbly say like, this is my anecdotal, one person's little experience, not going into business. I'm being very transparent about that, trying to be just open and honest and be myself on here and not try to sell you something all the time, but purely documenting, purely just sharing my journey because it's like therapy for me. So yeah, I'm a part of this fourth wave coffee, and it didn't really dawn on me or hit me until, you know, 999 asked the question, what were my thoughts? So it's cool. It's just like churning a lot of things where I can be just a little bit more aware about the industry or the wave that I'm a part of. Not that I want to like, I'm fourth wave and like use that as a means of marketing, which I definitely could, I guess. But yeah, I'm in that category.
Is really going out of their way to treat the customer and educating in a very non-judgy way, as well as bringing coffee into more fine dining and food pairing type situations. So there's a lot more to what defines the fourth wave, and I believe that it's still being written. But that brings us to the last wave that we'll cover today.
Yeah, it's still being written. So like, that's why I was like, yeah, I guess I'm part of the fourth wave. That's why it wasn't really a part of my awareness. It hasn't really passed yet. The time of intelligentsia and Blue Bottle, and all of these, like, there were like 3 cafes, right? There, you know, and now it's kind of being brought back down to, I guess, this level, like the Onyx level, who's mostly online. They do have a storefront and cafe, but this idea of it purely being a cafe, and that's the only place that you can get specialty coffee, is now coming in, and like people like me are having their own little side hustles and trying to sell coffee online, and people buy it, and they didn't have to go to Intelligentsia in Pasadena or in LA or like go get them Tiger or whatever, like all these dope cafes which offer that cafe atmosphere. But people who just want the beans, who maybe just want the beans, but also maybe they want a little bit more personal connection. Like, you guys know me, you guys seen my story, you guys know about my goddamn marriage. Like, that's a little much, right? Like, that's so intimate. Versus like going to Intelligentsia and there's like this cool barista shaking up things and making shit for you, right? So different relationship, more intimate relationship, where creators like me and roasters like me can have a little bit more different connection or closer relationship with the consumer, the buyer, right? Interesting. And yeah, it's still being written. Like, he doesn't really talk about home roasters in this video because we're such a small group, you know, us home roasters. And I don't know if we're actually going to be like in the history of coffee. I mean, it hasn't been done. It hasn't been really like established yet, but I think it is. Just because not so many, but I feel like it's a good chunk. I have such a small worldview of like what coffee is actually like, coffee industry is going through and stuff. But if anything, I think we'll be a little branch off of fourth wave. Like he said, it's still being written. So we're kind of like maybe you and I being home roasters or in the business of creating brands that are even more micro than the micro coffee shop that you go to, like there's even more micro, nano, super nano, I don't know what you call that, I guess just back to home coffee roasters and stuff like that, kind of like back to when coffee was first introduced to the world. You know, you just go get some seeds from a tree and put them in a pan and put it over the fire, like primal coffee, right? So let's see what else he has to say.
The fifth wave. If you hadn't guessed, they just keep on going. So the fifth wave really is about business of coffee. It was allegedly coined by Allegra Strategies, which is coffee.
Can we also shout out the aesthetics of this dude's layout, man? Like, he's got the backlighting, he's got this fill light over here, he's got his key light over here, it's well placed, everything, the high turtleneck. It's a vibe, which I dig. Sorry, just shout out to this dude.
Consultancy, and they've defined the fifth wave as the business of coffee, of which they also have a magazine and a podcast under the same moniker. So if you're interested in that, I'll actually leave it down in the description because they've got some interesting content you might want to dig into if you're involved in the business of coffee. But I can see
interesting that the fifth wave of coffee, I didn't even know there's a fifth wave of coffee, but it's the business of coffee. I'm not sure. Like, since it's so ethereal and kind of like crypto in a way, like out there, like not really, the idea is not really concrete yet. Fifth wave, the business of coffee. I think with that, it would just be kind of another wave of us versus them. There's always kind of like an us versus them in the world, you know, like tribes. There's a tribe where you know, certain people can kind of like stake their flag in, and that contrast makes the world go round. So I wonder if this business of coffee, he's talking about, like, what was it, chains?
This really being pioneered recently by bigger brands such as Blue Bottle, Arabica, where they've really taken strong third wave ideals and they've been able to apply them to a chain store scalability to reach bigger markets.
Okay, chain store scalability. So if we go back to here, a chain, that's like Starbucks, coffee shops, right? So we're trying to take this very high quality coffee, very high specialty bean quality, and then chain it. I mean, that'd be kind of dope, right? So that's what he's talking about. It's like, instead of every, I don't know, what is it, 20 miles or something, we're getting like, I don't know, 20 or 50 miles, we're getting an intelligentsia, which you're like, okay, I can relax my purist mind, or my like my like Gen Z mind, or whatever it is, my millennial mind, and know that this coffee is not Folgers, it's not Diners, it's not Maxwell House, it's not Starbucks, it's not Pete's, it's not Dunkin'. It's something high quality, but I can find it around every corner. And that is really interesting and fun. And I think if we're buying specialty coffee at this rate, right, at the Starbucks rate, at the Pete's rate, or the Dunkin' rate, well, if we say Starbucks rate, that's freaking global, right? And that's every freaking like block. Sometimes I see a Starbucks every like 2 or 3 blocks, at least here. And it's like, man, I wish I could get I don't know, like Klatch level coffee around every corner, or I don't know, like, what are your favorite coffee roasters? Like small coffee roasters around every corner. Wouldn't that be really cool? And then if they could make enough money to like be sustainable and fair to the farmer, that means farmers are going to be more prosperous and want to do and make better versions of their coffee, because there's a reward, right? There's a motivation to that. And they are also going to become better content creators and marketers of their own product, because, you know, they're involved, and there's definitely a monetary incentive to go and do that and learn and become content creators and all that stuff. And it's the accessibility is just going to be so crazy. Now, this demand for coffee, with all of the like environmental changes that will inevitably affect coffee growth, maybe we're also going to see a little bit of that science come in and be like, damn, we need to start making coffee more sustainable. Like, how do we do that? We're losing coffee in this part of the world because we don't have the same environment that we used to have, the same microclimate that we used to have. So maybe then they're going to start to be like, let's artificially induce a microclimate that can be conducive to like the best type of quality. High density, crazy little micro shifts in moisture and microclimates and stuff like that. Fermentation play. Maybe it's like I said before in a video, right? Maybe it's a low quality coffee, quote unquote low quality, like a Brazilian coffee that's like low, easy to grow. Maybe it's like a more disease resistant coffee strain, but then they ferment it, and so it starts to have all these like cool crazy flavors, and it's like can still be as viable as say like an Ethiopian or some crazy like, I don't know, high quality Nicaraguan coffee. I don't know, right? So like all these cool little things where there will be problems that will be presented within the fourth and the fifth waves of coffee, but that just creates an opportunity for coffee professionals, farmers, content creators, great minds to problem solve and create something cool, and then coffee can take on the next thing, whatever it is, a sixth wave, I don't know, some hybrid of all. Because just like this guy said in his he's like, yeah, like maybe the sixth wave is going to be a mixture, or just taking all the best parts from all the other waves, right?
Boutique chains which pride themselves on high quality service and experience, so they're constantly implementing new technologies to make working in coffee a much more viable career path, from baristas to producers and everyone in between. And it really is about the ideology that there is in fact money to be made in coffee if an
money. It's always about money, right? I mean, in the end, it's got to be, because money is not just seen as like, I don't know, if you, whatever moral compass you have about money, but money is a tool. Like, that's how I think of it. It opens doors, it gives you access, it allows you to just scale up, scale down if you need to, whatever. Like, it gives you options, it gives you freedom, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, we always have to think about money. We have to think about the tool that gives us X, and that X is like so grand. It can be so grand. It can give you so much capability, So yeah, we got to think about the money for sure. The money is a big motivator. Could be it's the only thing kind of holding up everything else. It's like, hey, yeah, we got to make money because we got to live, and we got to have all the options to live.
Organized strategy is involved and implemented. And maybe that's not so much of a bad thing. So what's next for coffee? Is there a sixth wave, seventh wave, or is it more just refining all the previous waves and building on those? Because I believe that each of the 5 waves we've discussed today are still in practice, they are still in effect in this world, but it's really about building on each one for its place in this global economy. So my personal opinion is that we're going to start seeing even more decentralization as a response to the increase of specialty coffee in mainstream culture. A lot more coffee nerds brewing and maybe even roasting at home, coffee farmers marketing their own stories and their own brands, which was something that was a lot more reserved to coffee roasters and coffee importers in the past. But with new technologies, we're starting to see a lot more of that happen, and even a surge of coffee producing countries consuming a lot more of their own coffee. So you're seeing this happening in places like Mexico.
Yeah. So, everything that I just reiterated, that I learned from this guy, and just a lot of the things that I've been noticing over the last 3 years of just buying coffee directly from a farmer, right? Like, that was really interesting. And how amazing their branding or their marketing is, or, how they communicate to me directly and how they get that, They were DMing me, like, thinking I was a young buck, but I'm not. So, yeah. 999, thank you for the question. I think it's very interesting in that, yeah, I'm definitely part of this fourth wave coffee. Maybe not all the way in there, but like a branch. I'm somewhere here, right? I'm somewhere in here. Maybe it's like a 4.5, because more and more like home roasters are coming into the fray, and companies like Mill City Roasters making that one kilo machine, which is so dope that you could just kind of run a little side hustle if you really dedicate yourself to it, right? So those are my thoughts no conclusive thoughts, but I think it's something to maybe look into if you're interested. I'll drop all these links in the description. But yeah, I love it when I learn something new and exciting and I'm like, oh cool, it just wasn't even on my radar. So it hyped me up a little bit. So thank you again, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Bye.